Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Today, I'm looking at a Dynasty rookie mock draft from my Patreon Discord. If you want to get in on the next mock draft, join the Patreon up there at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. Of course, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe on this video if you haven't. Let's go. So we can take a look at the mock draft here. I know it's a little hard to see, so I'm going to bring up the players in words one round at a time. Let's start with round one. Round one started off with Caleb Williams, then Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, J.J. McCarthy, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Jonathan Brooks, and then Bo Nix. And of course, this is a SUPERFLEX non-tight end premium draft. So this round was very chalky, but I have a best value. It's J.J. McCarthy, who went at 108. In non-tight end premium, I would take him ahead of Brock Bowers. He came at a nice price. But again, everything was super chalky, so there wasn't too much to comment on. Worst value in round one, Brock Bowers. I think in the non-tight end premium formats, he actually goes a little too high for me. Obviously, I'd rather have J.J. McCarthy over him. In non-tight end premium, I actually think Xavier Worthy has more upside than he does. So yeah, I'm not in on Brock Bowers at this price. But you know, the first 6 players were very chalky. It almost always goes in that order. So there's not too much to comment on in terms of values there. Overall comments on round one. These are the 12 players I have in round one. So very chalk. And in most drafts, I see 9 through 12 go X Worthy, Brian Thomas, Jonathan Brooks, Bo Nix in that order. So yes, this is how most drafts go. It's a good example of how your rookie draft might actually go. Let's move into round two. Round two started off with Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey, then Trey Benson, Xavier Legette, Michael Penix, Ricky Pearsall, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum, Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell, Roman Wilson, and Jermaine Burton. So again, I'm going to pick out my best value. This one's easy. It's Michael Penix at 205. To me, there are 15 high-quality players, let's call it that, above the others. It's the 12 who went in round one, Keon Coleman and Ladd McConkey, who went at 13 and 14, and Michael Penix. Those are the 15 I have as high-value assets. So for me, seeing Penix fall anywhere below the 203 is too far. Yes, he's going to sit for a while, but he was drafted 8th overall. No, I'm not paying a 26 first for Penix like some people are suggesting to do. Don't do that. But if you can draft him at the 203, yes, I would do that. And I'm fine sitting on him at that price. Not fine spending a future first to sit on an asset. But in this draft, he was the best value. The worst value, Xavier Legette. Now, there was so much chalk on this board, so I have to be a little bit nitpicky. And if I'm going to be nitpicky, I'm never taking Legette over Penix. I'm never taking Legette over Ricky Pearsall, who I like better and went to a landing spot that I prefer. So I'm just not loving it. But again, this was very chalky. So I am splitting hairs, but I had to pick somebody. So Xavier Legette was my least favorite pick in this round. Some overall comments on round two. Almost every draft has Coleman and McConkey. Sometimes they go in round one, but finishing at 201, 202. I usually see McConkey go first. I agree with how this draft went with Coleman first, but Coleman might be a little bit of a better value because he's usually going later. Additionally, these 24 rookies that were taken in the first 2 rounds are actually the top 24 that I have. So very, very chalky. Very chalky, even almost in the exact order. There were few variations. I have Blake Corum ahead of Marshawn Lloyd. I have Adonai Mitchell ahead of Jalen Polk. So a couple little variations, but otherwise very chalky right down the line. So, and that's most of what I'm seeing is that round one and round two, while there might be a little bit of deviation, is mostly chalk. So, get those little bit of value, but you're not going to get massive, bizarre values this year. That I'm not seeing that this year. Let's move to round three. Started off with Ben Sinnott, Jalen Wright, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving, Malachi Corley, Javon Baker, Jatavion Sanders, Jalen McMillan, Ray Davis, Kamani Vidal, Isaac Garendo, and Will Shipley. So my favorite pick is easy for me. It's Will Shipley. I don't understand why Will Shipley, he always falls. Always. I never see him go where I have him, which is significantly higher. I believe I have him 30th overall in this format. He went at 36th here. Always falls. You got 4th round draft capital. Yeah, he's the backup behind Saquon Barkley, but he has a path to an actual role. A talented player out of Clemson. I would not let him fall to the 312. I think that is a mistake. So for me, he was by far the best value in this round. The worst value, Jatavion Sanders. No interest in Jatavion Sanders. No athleticism. Bad draft capital. I don't even have him as the 307 in tight end premium, let alone in non-tight end premium. I think people are just too attached to their pre-draft eval of Sanders. The draft capital slide and just some of the things after the combine doesn't really make me interested in Sanders at all. I'll let someone else draft him. Overall comments. So for me, there's kind of a top 5 in this round. Sinnott, Wright, Franklin, Irving, and Corley are ahead of everyone else. I would have taken Wright first. In a non-tight end premium, he just has more upside than Sinnott. But those would have been my top 2 players. Javon Baker, I think, always is a little overdrafted for a day 3 wide receiver. I always see him kind of go in the middle of round 3. I'd be more comfortable near the end of round 3 or the beginning of round 4. I just don't want to draft a day 3 wide receiver who is fine, but I'm not like, he's not Amon-Ra. Like, he's not a prospect I'm like jumping for. So I'm not a big fan of Javon Baker's price. And then lastly, Ray Davis in this draft went to 309. I don't think I've been in on Ray Davis ever. This is the only draft that I've ever seen where Ray Davis comes at a value. Usually he goes in the early 3rd or even the late 2nd where I have no interest in him. But at 309 with his opportunity in the Buffalo offense, he actually is a value. So I think this is the first time I've ever seen that. So that's interesting. And then this round was a little bit less chalky. I definitely would have had Braylon Allen and Audric Estime in there. There's some weird things with the order. You know, Ray Davis went a lot later than usual. Jatavion Sanders was out of place. A couple of other things. But yeah, some more variation as we get into round 3. Let's move into round 4. We'll close with round 4. Braylon Allen, Audric Estime, Theo Johnson, Dylan Lobb, Luke McCaffrey, Rasheen Ali, Spencer Rattler, Tyrone Tracy, Devontae Walker, Eric All, Malik Washington, and Jacob Cowing. We close with Jacob Cowing. So my favorite value, Braylon Allen. I have seen him go later. In one of my own rookie drafts, he went, I think, 4 or 5 picks later. But he's still the biggest value to me. Even 5 years ago, Braylon Allen would have been a 2nd-round pick. He has rushing ability. He's a great rushing prospect, a very young player. So I'm still going to take him somewhere in the 3rd, even though he's buried on the Jets depth chart. So for me, he's the best value. There were no amazing values in this round because my 2 favorite players went with the first 2 picks in Allen and Estime. But if I had to choose, Braylon Allen would be the best value. The worst value, Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson is not draftable in a 4-round SUPERFLEX non-tight end premium draft. A day 3 tight end to the Giants is not exciting. It's not. And I think that, let's say Darren Waller retires, which is what most people are thinking. Daniel Bellinger, not Theo Johnson, will be the day 1 starter. So this is not someone I'm drafting. This is not someone I'm waiting for. It could take forever for him to break out. I'm just not interested in Theo Johnson in this type of format. So some overall comments. I'm not too surprised on who was drafted. Usually Jordan Travis is drafted late in the 4th, so he was probably the most shocking omission. Jawar Jordan, Isaiah Davis, and Blake Watson were my 3 favorite players who were not drafted. Blake Watson, that UDFA running back on the Broncos, is rising up my board. So definitely late 4th or a priority UDFA in your rookie drafts. And my last comment on this round is that tight ends are always overdrafted in this range. I see Eric All go in the 3rd. Theo Johnson went early here. These late tight ends just don't excite me. I mean, these day 3 tight ends, their hit rate is like nothing. I mean, George Kittle's like the only one who's hit in the last 10 years to anything like significant. So I'm not chasing that. You probably don't even remember the day 3 tight ends over the last 3 years. They're so unmemorable. So I'm not interested in those players over running backs with more potential. Now, if you like the video so far, make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Of course, all of those mock drafters came from my Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice, which you can sign up for up there or in the link down below. And signing up is the best way to support my content. And I really appreciate everyone who signs up. It helps keep this content going. Of course, all those who sign up get to ask advanced questions for the YouTube, of which I have 4. So we're going to get into those. What are your RBs or your biggest buys for contenders other than Bijan, Brees, and Jahmyr Gibbs? Generally, running back buys are overrated. They're too expensive. If you're going to target some veterans, I would say Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller are the year one targets who kind of flopped, who are a little underrated. Of course, drafting running backs, I'm higher than consensus on both Blake Corum and Marshawn Lloyd compared to wide receivers in that range. So those are players I would look into. Jonathan Brooks even doesn't come at a bad price. And then Kyren Williams. Of all the veterans, I think people are probably more afraid of Blake Corum than they should be. I like drafting Corum for the handcuff value, not because I think he's going to overtake Kyren Williams. So for me, Kyren Williams sometimes just drops to so low of a value. He's been the one that I could see targeting. Maybe Devon Achane, maybe. Depends on how much it costs. Thoughts on Nick Chubb? I feel like everyone thinks he's gone. His ADP is RB31. Isn't it too low? The Browns seem attached to him. Ford is just a guy. I agree that Ford is just a guy, but RB31 in Dynasty is too high, not too low for Nick Chubb. The injury is so severe. He's 29 years old. The value's not ever coming back. So the value's not coming back. And we have no idea if he's going to be ready to play week 1. Even if he is he going to be back to his old self at 29 years old? Maybe, but usually I just let other people have these old injured players. I usually just pass on them. So if his ADP is really RB31, I have no interest. I have him, I believe, about 5 or 6 spots. I have RB37, so 6 spots lower. So yeah, no interest in Chubb. And 6-point passing touchdowns. So the rookie quarterbacks rank the same for you. Caleb, Daniels, May, McCarthy, Nix, and then Penix. So the tier break's still the same too. Yeah, no change to the ranks. Caleb is still number 1. If anything, it's number 1 by more. Daniels still number 2. The rushing upside, it's not like he doesn't throw. He still throws. He was a great passer his last year in college. So doesn't change anything there for me. May and McCarthy, I mean, a lot of what I like about May is his rushing upside that McCarthy does not have at all. So maybe they'd be a little bit closer, but I would still have May ahead because he's just a better thrower anyway. And then as for Nix and Penix, it doesn't really change anything. Nix actually runs more than Penix. Not sure that's going to continue in the NFL. But yeah, no change to the rankings, no change to the tier breaks. Nothing matters enough to change any of these rookie quarterbacks. Lastly, what are your thoughts on post-draft waivers? Is better stash the proven guys or stash the no-name lottery tickets? It's just so situation dependent. In general, I just say follow my Patreon ranks to choose between these types of players, which obviously you can sign up for on the Patreon. And that's why buying the Patreon ranking spreadsheet is such a big edge, because there really isn't a general rule. In general, of course, I would say, yeah, you want the new players over the known boring, but I don't want to cut productive players for some running back who's the 4th on the depth chart. So it really is situation dependent. I can't give you a one-size-fits-all rule. And that's why the Patreon Discord is so important, because you can just ask. You can ask, oh, should I cut this player for this player? And then I'll answer. And then you know. But I don't have like a general rule because every player is different. So that's kind of my take on that. Well, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment with thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my rookie ranks, full Dynasty Fantasy Football advice, everything, it's available on the Patreon. And I can't stress this enough. Every sign up really helps. It's been hard. It's been hard to get people to sign up for the Patreon. If you're on the fence about it, just know that it really means a lot. It helps keep the YouTube going. It helps keep my content going. And independent content can't survive for free. So I do appreciate everyone who signs up for the Patreon. But to close out, I want to thank everyone for watching this video, and I'll see you all later. Peace out.